Okay, guys. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So most of us are here, alhamdulillah. Okay, we have a speaking exercise for today, as you see. Becoming happier. Many young people say that they are unhappy and feel negative about their lives. Why do you think this is? This is the first part of the question we are going to discuss, or this is the first question that is like a diagnosis. And the second part, which is how could they develop a more positive approach? This is like the prescription. If we give the analogy like a doctor's job. So who can answer the first part, guys, before we get into the second one? Why do you think this is? Why do you think young people are unhappy? In your own words, who can say that?
Could I say that, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I think young people are not that happy because um, I would say adults, like older people, the mature people, would think young people cannot do the stuff that they actually can do. So they
Bravo.
cannot rely on them properly, like the young people would want them to rely on them.
Thank you very much. So they think, young people think that the older generations don't believe in them as grown-ups yet, and they still consider them as children. So these adolescents or young adults would like to prove themselves, and proving themselves makes them stressed all the time. Thank you. Would anybody else like to add anything to what Faisal said? Thank you, Faisal.
You're welcome, sir.
I would say,
Yes, Muhammad.
add on to what Faisal said about the older people, they do not trust or do not believe in the younger people.
Yes.
That causes the younger people to want to prove themselves, to show that they are worth the talent and the respect they deserve.
Thank you very much. Bravo. Can anybody else add another point before we move to the second?
Can I?
Abdurrahman, would you have any other
Yeah.
point to add? Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Since now there are a lot of games and they need a lot of processing power. Younger people would like to play them, but processing power in devices is very expensive and they can't save up for it. So they will be sad and that they wouldn't be able to get it or afford it, and they have to keep living with that.
Excellent. So this is another source of distress on them. All right, thank you. Malik, Saud, or anybody, would you like to add any other point before we go to the second part, which is more important because of the idea of curing the illness, if we have the analogy of having this as an illness, as I said before, because analyzing the problem is just diagnosing it, giving a diagnosis. But when you think of the solution, which is more important, is actually the prescription. You are giving some solution depending on some elements, such as the bullet list elements that we have here, the 4 points that I'm going to present fast now before I give the floor to any one of you to present his speech, depending on these. Okay, guys, would you like to add anything before we move to the second point? Saud, do you have anything to say? Malik or anybody? Iyad? Ahmed, Ahmed?
No, sir. No, sir.
All right. Thank you. So the second part is how could you or how could they develop a more positive approach? And if I make it personal, I can say, how could you develop a more positive approach for yourself and others? Try to explain your views. You might consider, the book says might, because you don't have to follow that. As here under the elements, the book repeats again, saying you are free to consider any other related ideas of your own. You're not allowed to make any written notes in this exercise because it depends on ad-libbing or improvising to develop the speaking skill, different from what we took before about the writing skill. All right, now, you might consider such things as, first, the opportunity to enrich your life by doing more things that bring pleasure. Who can squeeze all of that? Who can summarize the whole line in one word, one key word? Who can say to me what is the main key word of this line?
The main keyword of this line is opportunity.
Bravo. Opportunity. Opportunity of whatever that brings pleasure to you or to those you advise. Thank you very much. The second, the advantages or disadvantages of planning your life and setting goals. What is the key word of the whole element here?
Advantages.
No.
No, it's planning. Planning.
Bravo. Planning, which can be said in other words. I can say, do you have a plan for your life or not have a plan? What is the advantage or disadvantages? What are the advantages or disadvantages of having a plan? Does it help you in practice or does it backfire at you if it's a bad plan or a wrong one? So
It
this,
could be both.
yeah. So now opportunity is the key word of the first element. Plan
And the planning is the one
the
of the
second element. Let's read the third element and check how you summarize it into key word or a key phrase. The value of role models in inspiring young people. What is the key phrase or key word here?
I think it would be
Inspiring.
inspiring, right?
It's either value or role models.
Yeah, bravo, role models. Thank you very much. Role models. Whether you are a role model for others or you are following in the steps of a role model or some role models in your life. Thank you very much. So role model here. The last one, the idea that voluntary work with a disadvantaged people or underprivileged people or unprivileged people makes us feel grateful for what we have in comparison. We feel grateful for what we have. If we get into voluntary work or community service or helping others, in whatever wording, you can say the same idea. All right. What is the key word here? The last element.
Grateful.
No. Because
Would it be
grateful is a result of the main.
Voluntary work.
It's either voluntary or disadvantage.
Thank
Voluntary
you,
work.
but Malik said it, yeah, Malik said it specifically. Voluntary work. Thank you, Faisal and Malik. Thank you, Muhammad also. So voluntary work, as Malik said, is the key word or the key phrase here. Because we say